Greetings everyone. I'm going to be making another video related to immigration, and this time is going to be talking related to President Donald Trump's plans of doing mass deportations of undocumented immigrants back to their native countries. But this video is going to be focusing mostly on how would he be able to do that when it comes to Venezuela in South America. Venezuela will be a complicated case for Donald Trump because during his last term as president, Donald Trump cut off relations with Venezuela. The United States severed relations with Venezuela, and he was seeking regime change against the socialist dictatorship of Venezuela and President Nicolas Maduro, and placing crippling economic sanctions on Venezuela. As a result, Venezuela ended up ending all support for deportation flights. Venezuela does not accept American deportation flights of returning Venezuelans back to Venezuela. So if Donald Trump wants to deport undocumented Venezuelans back to Venezuela, but the Venezuelan government won't accept the flights of deportations, that leaves a complicated situation for the Trump administration. And now I want to dive into that and what might end up having to happen. So illegal immigration in general is a mess right now in the United States. But focusing on the Venezuelan issue, Venezuelan immigrants really started coming to the United States after 2014 onwards. 2014 is when Venezuela went through a total economic meltdown and collapse. And so many Venezuelans gave up and they left Venezuela and went to other countries in South America, and many also to the United States. And many came undocumented. When Venezuelans started coming to the United States in large numbers from 2014 to now, at first many Americans were very welcoming and sympathetic towards the Venezuelan immigrants and viewing them as quote-unquote, worthy victims, worthy immigrants fleeing a terrible socialist dictatorship in Venezuela under Nicolas Maduro and a collapsing Venezuelan economy. Many Republican politicians, including people like Marco Rubio from Florida, would put them on the same level as they do Cuban immigrants. That, these are the immigrants we want to bring in and give temporary protected status and protect. As recently as 2019 and even 2021, another Florida senator, Rick Scott, and some other Republican congresspeople in Florida, such as Mario Diaz-Balart, who's a Cuban American in U.S. Congress, were pushing for a bill to give even more Venezuelan immigrants temporary protected status. At the same time, more and more caravans of Venezuelans at times have been coming to the United States. So many undocumented Venezuelan immigrants have come into the United States and are here undocumented, or also, if you want to say, illegally. This has also included Venezuelan criminals, including from the Venezuelan gang Tren De Aragua. After there's been an increase now of crimes in the United States committed by Venezuelan undocumented immigrants, including Jose Ibarra, who murdered Lincoln Riley, a 22-year-old American woman. 26-year-old Jose Ibarra, who made national American headlines for the murder trial against that young lady is from Venezuela. So now American sympathy towards Venezuelan immigrants has decreased now after this. There is now a frustration with Venezuelan immigrants that they're trouble. And this leads to, how would President Trump deport them when he wants to do this mass deportation plan? One of the problems I mentioned at the beginning of the video is the United States severed diplomatic relations with Venezuela the last time that Donald Trump was president. And Venezuela is not taking deportation flights. They're not taking back deported Venezuelans. They are not allowing American planes to enter into Venezuelan airspace. If the United States wants to deport Venezuelans back to Venezuela, the United States is going to have the cooperation of the dictatorship of Venezuela, which would be a hard thing. The last time Donald Trump was president, he and his administration were trying regime change in Venezuela. They cut off diplomatic relations with Venezuela. They did harsh economic sanctions on Venezuela. The Trump administration even tried plotting a coup, which ended up not working in the country. So Venezuela's dictatorship is very paranoid and mistrustful of the United States and might fear taking back in deported Venezuelans, that they might be part of a Bay of Pigs invasion to overthrow them. So the Trump administration, in its deportation plans, is going to have to make some decisions and compromises, possibly, with the dictatorship of Venezuela in order for Venezuela to allow the immigration planes to enter into Venezuelan airspace. It will be interesting seeing how the Trump administration would try to do any types of negotiations with Venezuela when you have Trump apparently wanting to make Marco Rubio his Secretary of State, and Rubio has repeatedly called for wanting to go to war in Venezuela. So the Trump administration might have to restore relations with the dictatorship of Venezuela instead of what the U.S. was trying to do before, when they were recognizing political opposition figures as the actual president of Venezuela instead of Nicolas Maduro. The United States was trying to recognize Juan Guaido for a few years, that he was the legitimate president of Venezuela, and that didn't work out. And eventually Juan Guaido fled Venezuela. So the United States might have to go back to recognizing Nicolas Maduro as the president of Venezuela. The United States might have to go back to doing oil business with Venezuela to get the Venezuelan government to start taking back deportation flights. The United States will not be able to just send the Venezuelans they want to deport to other countries, because those other countries are not going to want to take in Venezuelans. They're probably going to take in citizens of their own native country. So this would be a difficult decision for the Trump administration, what they're going to do, because if they do concede and give any legitimacy to the dictatorship of Venezuela, many of the conservative base of Trump, including in the Latinos with Cubans and Venezuelans, they're going to be all angry at Trump and view it as some sort of a betrayal. So that will be a challenging thing, especially when you have people like Marco Rubio involved, who's a hardliner on this topic.